Welcome back to another FPL video. This will be the best wildcard team for Double Gameweek 25. If I'm being completely honest, it's quite an awkward time to wildcard, but there can still be some merit to playing the chip and navigating Double Gameweek 25, Blank Gameweek 26, and also Blank Gameweek 29, not to mention Double Gameweek 28. The issue would be Gameweek 30 onwards with the fixture swings and future Double Gameweeks like 34 and 37. If you end up enjoying this video, smash the like button and subscribe if new. Our aim is to get this video to over 200 likes, and we're continuing to push towards 23k subscribers and beyond. Also check out all the links in the description below for the Patreon Championships Discord server, my Twitter and Instagram, and the FPL League. But without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. As I've said in recent wildcard videos, I think the goalkeeper position is the most difficult to nail down. I've gone for Flecken. He doubles in Gameweek 25, but it's against Man City and Liverpool. So in terms of clean sheets, you expect 0, but he can get some points from saves and potentially some bonus like he did against Man City in Gameweek 23 not so long ago. So I think Flecken is a decent pick. He also features in Blank Gameweek 29 against Burnley, which is a quite good fixture on paper, and that's 17 points in the last 2 game weeks for Flecken, who also features in the best free hit team video. Be sure to check that out. So I think he's probably the best at this moment in time. There's also David Raya, but my issue with him is that he's ineligible to play against Brentford in Gameweek 28, and then in Gameweek 29 he's very likely to blank, so that puts me off Raya. There's also no doubles for Arsenal anytime soon, so I'd rather go for Flecken. Then you look at Alisson, and he's got a double this week but blanks in 26, and he's very likely to blank in 29. But if you have the funds, I don't mind going for Alisson so long as your second goalkeeper does feature in Blank Gameweek 26 and 29. And speaking of which, the second goalkeeper also does. I'm going for Areola, despite having a 0-pointer in Gameweek 24 after West Ham were absolutely demolished against Arsenal. But I still think Areola is a good goalkeeper for his price. Don't expect many clean sheets in the long run, but he can get some bonus points, some saves, and he's even decent in terms of saving penalties, so that could be something else he offers you. I think these two goalkeepers just give you different options, of course. They both feature in Blank Gameweek 26 and 29, and not only that, you've got a double for Flecken in Gameweek 25, and the fixtures long term are quite good for Brentford. So up until Gameweek 32, the quality of fixtures isn't great, but they have a lot of fixtures in general and double game weeks, and also featuring in the blank game weeks. Whilst with Areola, he's got decent fixtures throughout, and I think they rotate quite well. And from Gameweek 33 until the end of the season, Flecken has a great fixture run, and that's where the quality of fixtures dramatically improve. So Flecken and Areola are the two goalkeepers. Let me know who you would pick in this position, but I think what you get from these two is decent value and a few clean sheets along the way. I'm still not fully convinced by Man City defenders, including Nathan Ake, but with the news that Josko Gvardiol could be out for 2 to 3 weeks, I think that opens the door for Ake to be a decent option for Double Gameweek 25 and Blank Gameweek 26. There is the distinct possibility of a Kanji or Rico Lewis playing as the left back, but I think against Chelsea and Brentford, Ake should be good to go and start both games. If you have any other thoughts about Man City defenders, be sure to let me know. I think it's a very difficult subject because with pretty much everyone available, with the exception of Gvardiol and Kovacic, rotation is going to be rife in every single position, and only Erling Haaland is safe in order to play every single game and pretty much play the full 90. But Ake could be a decent shout. He's also got a few goal contributions, 2 goals and 3 assists, and also an 11-pointer in Gameweek 24, which is piquing everyone's interest. And now with Gvardiol out, I think that opens the door for Ake to make it 9 and then 10 consecutive starts in the Premier League. He's currently on 8, which is very encouraging for a Man City defender. Next up, things get even more interesting, but with Trent Alexander-Arnold still being a major doubt. He wasn't pictured in training yesterday on the Tuesday, and this video is recorded on the Wednesday. Let's see if there are any updates by the time this video is published, but I'm going to go for Virgil van Dijk and cover Liverpool defensively that way. As I mentioned earlier, you could go for Alisson instead between the sticks, and that could be a nice way of still rotating and navigating all these doubles and blanks, because if your second goalkeeper like Flecken or Areola feature in those blank game weeks, I think you're good to go. But I've gone for Van Dijk. I think he could get a massive return in this double game week, and he's also a decent option in Gameweek 27. But I think most people would look to sell Liverpool defenders in either Blank Gameweek 26 or in Gameweek 28 when they face Manchester City, because straight after that, it's a very likely blank in Gameweek 29. So Van Dijk for me is the best Liverpool defender to invest in, even as a 1-week punt. You could also consider Robertson, of course, and maybe Connor Bradley, but Van Dijk for me is just the safest, and he's got some goal threat, especially from set pieces. Now, next up, once again, things get even more interesting. I'm going to go for a single game week option, no doubles anytime soon, and that is Gabriel, who has scored 14 goals since he has joined Arsenal back in 2020, the most of any defender in the top 5 European leagues, and I just think he's good value for money, and Arsenal have been in great form since returning from Dubai. 4 wins out of 4, 16 goals scored, and 2 conceded. And by the way, Gabriel has scored 3 goals himself, including a brace against Crystal Palace. So I think Gabriel is just a safe, solid option. You can also go for Saliba or Ben White. And whilst I like David Raya in the long term, the fact he is ineligible to play against Brentford and he's also very likely to blank in 29 does put me off. So I'd rather go for the defenders, and I think Gabriel is a very good way of achieving that. Now we're going to go for another double game at 25 defender, and that's going to be Doughty, but he also blanks in 26. That's my only concern with him, but he does double in 28, and it's a quite good double on paper. And Luton Town are very likely to feature in Blank Game 29 as well. But I think the most difficult thing is nailing down this last defender spot. I'm quite happy with these 4, even though I have some reservations about Ake, which I discuss in the trans tips video. But the final defender has just returned from injury. He hasn't played in a very long while. And what I like most about him is the fact that he navigates Blank Game 26 and 29. And that's the main reason why he features. I don't trust this team defensively, especially with one of their key players being out for the season due to an ACL injury. And I'm talking about Pau Torres and Aston Villa. Kamara is going to be out for the entire campaign. I think that's a massive blow. And I would argue that Kamara is the most important player they have. Maybe not from an FPL perspective, of course, but in terms of how he makes things tick and protects the back 4, I think that's a massive blow. And I don't trust Aston Villa defensively, even with Kamara. But the main reason I'm going for Pau Torres is because he's nailed on. He's going to start every single game once he's back to full fitness. And he's also going to feature in Blank Game 26 and 29 with decent fixtures against Nottingham Forest at home and West Ham away. So that's why I'm going for him. You could also argue Alex Moreno, but with Luka Dean coming back, I think that's only going to spell trouble and rotation for the Spaniard. So that puts me off, and I don't see Alex Moreno starting every single game, including the blank game weeks in 26 and 29. And you need as many players as possible in order to navigate those game weeks without using a chip. So that's the defensive 5 I'm going for. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Are there any alternatives you would consider? I'm not a big fan of Pau Torres, but like I said, with future blanks in mind and also navigating this upcoming period, that's why I'm going for him. And the same could arguably be said for Van Dijk, Doughty, and Nathan Ake. But overall, it's pretty good stuff in my opinion. We've also got some diversity in the defensive line. But let's now move on to the midfielders. There is still a chance for the likes of Saka and Arsenal assets to feature in Blank Game 29, but that would require Leeds United to beat Chelsea in the FA Cup 5th round at Stamford Bridge. And despite how poor Chelsea have been this season, you'd still expect that to not happen and for Chelsea to go through and for that fixture against Arsenal at the Emirates to blank in Game 29. But Saka is still a good way of covering Blank Game 26. He's also got a good fixture this week in Double Game 25 against Burnley away. So I do like Saka, and I think he's a great option up until Game 29. And then you could sell him to someone like Heung-min Son, for example, who features against Fulham in Blank Game 29. But Saka, for me, has been a very consistent option throughout the season. He had a rough patch in December. I think he had 1 return from 7 games, and Arsenal also had a similar run of 1 win in 7 games across all competitions. But Saka, in general, is very consistent, and you're seeing his recent form. It's so difficult to go without a player of that quality, especially when the likes of Heung-min Son are only just returning from the Asian Cup, and Salah is still injured, but could possibly feature in Double Game 25. So I'm going for Saka, and the same goes for Jota. I think he's a great option while Salah is out, but once Salah is able to start games consistently, I think Jota's appeal does decrease dramatically because Jota is playing a lot of games on the right-hand side, and whilst he's two-footed, he can play on the left and down the middle. I think with Salah coming back, that only makes Jota a worse FPL asset. But I would argue he's a keep up until Game 28, because in Game 27, Liverpool face Nottingham Forest, and Jota has a great record against them. He's got more goals than games played in the Premier League against them, and even during his time at Wolves, he scored plenty of goals against Nottingham Forest in the Championship. So that's something to consider. But if not, I think most of you would sell Jota in Blank Game 26. And then things get even more interesting. I'm going to go for Phil Foden. I would love to have a Kevin De Bruyne in this team, but in terms of value and budget and focusing on other priorities, that's why I haven't gone for De Bruyne, who I bought in the last minute in UCL Fantasy, and he did very well in the Champions League. But Phil Foden for me is still better value for money and more nailed on in the long term. My only concern with Foden is when he starts games on the right-hand side. I think he's less effective from that position in terms of goal output. But whenever he plays on the left or as an attacking midfielder, you'd be very confident that he's going to return. And with this double game week against Chelsea and Brentford, and then a good fixture in Blank Gameweek 26 against Bournemouth away, I think Foden is a very good option. And I'd rather go for him over Jota in the long term. So I think that's the way I would go about it. And this is where we're going to start to conclude the midfield. And I'm not entirely sure about this, but I'm going to go for Pascal Gross. I think with those fixtures up until Blank Gameweek 29, Brighton are still right up there in the fixture difficulty rating. And I sold Gross 2 weeks ago, and ever since he's produced 11 and 10 points, which is very frustrating, but FPL can be like that. And I would have benched him in Game Week 24, to be fair. But Gross for me is a bonus points machine. He's very versatile for Brighton. He can play right back, right wing back, centre mid, attacking midfield, you name it. And I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. And he's got a good fixture in Blank Gameweek 26 against Everton. But it's worth mentioning in Blank Gameweek 29, he is very likely to blank. And even if that game went ahead, which is so unlikely, it would be against Man City. But the final midfielder is another one who helps you navigate Blank Gameweek 26 and 29. He's another bonus points machine. He's also a penalty taker, which is very encouraging. And I'm talking about Douglas Luiz, who I highlighted in the Trans Tips video. And he's someone I haven't really talked about in these FPL videos throughout the season because you've got Gordon, Palmer around a similar price. And generally speaking, I like to invest in more expensive midfielders who have more goal output from open play. But Douglas Luiz is a fantastic option. Whenever he gets a goal or an assist, he is so likely to get 2 or 3 bonus points, and that is a massive plus. And with those fixtures in Game Week 26 and 29, and Aston Villa having good fixtures up until Game Week 30, I think Douglas Luiz is a very good option. And if you're looking to replace Cole Palmer, I think Douglas Luiz could be the very best option at your disposal. I also like Hwang Hee-chan to navigate Blank Game Week 26 and potentially a few other options of that ilk. But Douglas Luiz for me is the best long term. And with Blank Gameweek 29 in mind, if you want to navigate that without using a chip, I think Douglas Luiz is one of the best midfielders to buy from Double Gameweek 25 onwards. So once again, I diverse midfield, a few different picks compared to the usual. I talked about Gross a couple of weeks ago, but he's back into this team. The same goes for Douglas Luiz. And now let's complete this squad with the 3 forwards. This is where things get very interesting indeed, because suddenly there are so many options in the forward line. Cunha just got injured, but he was looking really promising. Højlund's in fantastic form. You've also got Darwin Núñez with a plum double game week in 25, but he blanks in 26. You've got Solanke with great long-term fixtures up until game week 32 and a double in game week 28. Watkins also has very good fixtures and he's been so consistent throughout the course of the season. Ivan Toney has come back a couple of weeks ago and he's only blanked once out of 4 games. So suddenly you have so many different options. Even Alvarez remains a decent alternative. But Ollie Watkins for me is just consistent. He doesn't have double game weeks, but he features in Blank Game Week 26 and 29, and I wouldn't sell him if possible. I'm considering a 1 game week punt of Watkins to Darwin Núñez, then going back to Watkins in 26, but that's still quite risky, and I could be priced out of buying Watkins back in Blank Game Week 26 or 27. So that's the big concern with such a transfer for me personally, and I'll talk about this in the team selection video. But Watkins is someone that's featured in virtually every single Wildcard Team video this season, and there's a good reason for that, in my opinion. Next up is Ivan Toney. He doubles in 25. He also has a fixture in Blank Game Week 29 against Burnley, which makes him a good captaincy option, and he also has not great fixtures to be fair, but he's got a good quantity of fixtures, and then from Game Week 32 onwards, he's got great fixtures to round off the season. So I do like Ivan Toney. He could arguably be a season keeper, but then you might be asking me, what about Haaland and Solanke? Who's going to be the last forward? Well, of course, it's going to be Erling Haaland. He is triple captain territory this week. And of course, if you are wildcarding in Game Week 25, you can't use another chip like the bench boost or the triple captain. And that will be a big question for those that aren't using another chip this week. Which one are you going to use, the triple captaincy or the bench boost? That's something else I'll highlight in the team selection video. But Erling Haaland for me is almost essential for the next couple of weeks. And you might be asking, what about Salah if he's back for double game week 25? I think for most people, the best play is to go without him until game week 30 because of blank game week 29, a fixture against Man City in game week 28, and another blank in game week 26. And it's going to be so difficult to not own Salah. And I think from game week 30 onwards, he'll be essential and most people will go for him. And to be honest, I don't like that term essential, but Salah, when he's in that form that he showed very recently, it's so difficult to go without a player of that consistency and FPL output. But overall, I think this squad helps you navigate double game week 25, blank game week 26 and 29, and double game week 28. And you can always buy Solanke for Erling Haaland in Game Week 28 when Man City face Liverpool at Anfield. Or you could even sell Ivan Toney, then do the reverse yet again in Blank Game Week 29. There's a few ways you can tackle this, but with Solanke, who is obviously a big absentee up front, for Double Game Week 28, I'd definitely buy him. And he's got Burnley away in Game Week 27. So you could argue that Solanke is worth buying in Game Week 27. So there's a lot of things to discuss, of course, with this team. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But let's now move on to FPL.team, talk about the starting 11, the captaincy, and also a few alternatives in each position, just in case you're not a fan of some of my picks. In goal, I'd go for Flecken with that double game week, and Areola would sit firmly on the bench. And the back three would be Ake, Doughty, and Van Dijk. The midfield would be Saka, Foden, Gross, and Diogo Jota. And the front three is Erling Haaland, Watkins, and Ivan Toney. And the bench would be Gabriel, Douglas Luiz, and Pau Torres. So you could argue that's a bench boostable team, but once again, you can't use two chips in the same game week. And I think I'd still use the triple captaincy even with that bench. And Gabriel is someone you'd arguably start, but then who would you bench? And to be honest, I don't think I would bench anyone. Maybe Pascal Gross, but that's about it. The expected points is 96.7, and I've got 0.4 million left in the bank. So maybe you're not able to afford this team exactly, and you can make some compromises in certain positions. So for example, you could go for Solanke instead of Ivan Toney, and that sorts out your issue for Double Game Week 28. And I think that sorts out the budget issue for a lot of you. But if not, there's a few other things you could do. Maybe go without Saka, which I'm not a big fan of. And you could also go for a cheaper defender than Gabriel. And maybe instead of Flecken, you just go for Dubravka and just stick with those two very cheap options in the goalkeeper position. But I think the best way to afford this team, if you are struggling a little bit, is to do Ivan Toney to Solanke. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. That is the Double Game Week 25 setup. Haaland will be the captain and Jota is the vice. If we look very briefly to Blank Game Week 26, you would have a full 11, and that is without making any transfers whatsoever with this wildcard squad. And you're also well set up for future game weeks such as Game Week 27 and also Game Week 28 and Game Week 29. And really you can build a full 11 in Blank Game Week 29 by just taking a -4 hit in Double Game Week 28 and another hit in Blank Game Week 29. So let me know your thoughts, of course, down in the comment section below and what you think of these transfer plans. I think the plan would be from Game Week 27 onwards to load up on Spurs very gradually. Heung-min Son, Richarlison, Maddison, Pedro Porro, Doggy would be the standout options, but I think Son is definitely piquing my interest from Game Week 27 onwards. He's a fantastic option, and in Blank Game Week 29, obviously there's always this debate about having as many players as possible and having that quantity, but it's also about the quality of players you have and covering the key players in those blank game weeks. And I think you do that with these transfer plans as well. And I'd encourage you to pause the video at different stages so you can see what you do in each game week. So just to recap, if we go back to Game Week 25, this would be the team, of course, that I've highlighted throughout most of the video. Then we go to Blank Game Week 26, and this is a full 11 at your disposal. You can captain Haaland or even Ollie Watkins, and you don't even need to make a transfer at all, which can be very useful. In Game Week 27, you can make 2 transfers and bring in Spurs players like Pedro Porro and Richarlison. And then in Game Week 28 for the double game week, you can buy Doughty and Solanke if you go for Toney, Watkins and Haaland in the first place. And you would actually sell Haaland to Solanke in Game Week 28 when Man City face Liverpool at Anfield. And then in Game Week 29, you bring in Heung-min Son and you make another transfer, potentially Mbeumo, who I'm backing to be available for Blank Game Week 29. And if he is available, he is a fantastic differential for that blank game week, and he could even rival the likes of Ivan Toney as the best Brentford asset. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 23k subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, the FPL League, and Draft Hound. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Double Game Week 25 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.